Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you, and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. And on the slate, we are going to preview this Week 1 matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers Friday in Brazil. And I can't believe we're already here, but I am excited for the 2024 NFL season to get underway. This game taking place, a rare Friday night evening spot, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 5:15 p.m. for those of you out on the West Coast. If anybody out watching this show is going to this game, let me know down in the comments section, and we'll give you a shout out here on the program. The Birds, 3-point favorites, and the over-under 48.5. Now, this is deemed an Eagles home game, even though it is a neutral site game. Philadelphia will still have 8 games at home, Lincoln Financial Field, on the regular season schedule here in 2024. A programming reminder, be sure to join us on Friday night. Chase Sr., Jake Chipper, right here on Eagles Now. People will be rocking with us from every pocket of America and worldwide. If you've never been a part of our watch party, it's the best place to experience game day outside of being at the actual game. And because all of you are such great real ones and you've supported the program all off season long, into training camp, all throughout the preseason, going into Week 1, we will be doing a 90-minute pregame show for this game. So we'll see you at 6:45 p.m. Eastern, 3:45 p.m. Pacific, live play-by-play, audience interaction, super chat giveaways, and we'll react to this game as it transpires with up-to-the-second updates. Hit that subscribe button right now. We're approaching 81,000 subscribers. Can't wait to see you right here on Eagles Now on Friday night for our Week 1 watch party. Of course, a unique situation here for Philadelphia and Green Bay, and for the National Football League and its fans. The Eagles specifically will be traveling more than 4,700 miles to Brazil. This is the first NFL game in Brazil, in South America in general, and it's the NFL's first Friday game on an opening weekend in 50 years. So the Eagles are part of history here, especially for the fans who will be attending this game. Brazil is known for soccer, football. Now American football makes its way to Brazil. And some interesting early developments here. You had DeVonta Smith asked about going to Brazil last week. He said, no comment. A.J. Brown was asked about the unique opportunity to go to Brazil, and he said, not really looking forward to it. Darius Slay on his podcast, echoing something very similar. He's not even having his family travel with him. And players on the Philadelphia side, Green Bay side, they have been given a document with all of the don't do's while in Brazil. And pretty much these players are going to fly to Brazil. They're going to practice. They're going to do some touristy things. They're going to play in this game. That's it. And the Eagles will come back to Philadelphia. Players aren't happy about having to go because there are very strict guidelines due to the safety of players and the increase in violence and crime that has been happening in Brazil. A little bit of a money grab for the National Football League. Would rather just see this game be kicked off at Lincoln Financial Field, but you know the NFL is a cash cow. Jersey update for the Birds. Philadelphia, for the first time, will be wearing their road white jerseys with black helmets and black pants. They have not worn that kit before in the history of this organization. I think it looks fresh. Key free agency additions for both teams. We know that Howie Roseman is always active during the offseason, and his spending spree in free agency was headlined by Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Devin White. I put Mekhi Becton on here because he was a low-level free agency signing at the time. He was supposed to be a backup swing tackle, but he performed so well at right guard that he is starting at right guard Week 1 against a solid Packers defensive line. Green Bay, never as aggressive in free agency. They don't spend as much money as a team like Philadelphia, but they did make a couple of marquee moves. That includes giving Xavier McKinney $17 million per year. The former Giant safety was a big splash for that defense on the back end. The Packers splurging on a running back in Josh Jacobs, who comes to the Packers from the Las Vegas Raiders, and then they signed kicker Greg Joseph. Both teams also suffering some key offseason losses. The Eagles without two franchise icons over the last decade plus, respectively, in Jason Kelce, the best center in the history of this organization, and Fletcher Cox, one of the best defensive linemen in the history of this organization. Also for Philadelphia, Hassan Reddick gets traded to the New York Jets. He is still holding out with New York, by the way, with Week 1 quickly approaching for the Jets on Monday night against the Niners. DeAndre Swift signed with the Chicago Bears, and Kevin Byard also signed with Chicago. Key offseason losses for Green Bay: David Bakhtiari, John Runyon Jr., Darnell Savage, Aaron Jones, and Devondre Campbell. So both teams with some marquee players who really became a part of their organizations moving on in those post-player eras. I will say this, I'm looking forward to this matchup as a football fan, as somebody who likes to digest high-level football, because I think Philadelphia and Green Bay are two of the top teams in the NFC. If one of these two teams are representing the NFC in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59 in February, won't be surprised at all. I think they're talented. I think they're well coached. I think they're well-rounded. You have Philadelphia, who started hot, collapsed at the end of last year. You have Green Bay, who started slow. They were on fire. Green Bay, one of the youngest teams in the NFL with a lot of talent. Philadelphia, age not concerned, but they're loaded this year, and if they get off to a slow start, some people are going to be calling for Nick Sirianni's head. So it's an important game for both teams to get off to a fast start, because the Packers didn't do that last year, and then the Eagles are coming off the heels of a season in which they started 10-1, and then they finished 11-6, and it was a disastrous ending to the 2023 campaign. Let's next take a look at what these two squads did offensively last year, and then, of course, more takeaways on this front, because the Eagles will have a new offensive system led by Kellen Moore. Even with how bad Philadelphia was a year ago, their offensive numbers per game still checked out. And if you were to look at these numbers, you'd say, no way that the Eagles were so horrendous at the end of the 2023 campaign. But man, if you watched it, the eye test did not pass the test. The Eagles, 7th in points per game at 24.5, 9th in yards per game at 350 even, 5th in third down conversion rate at 46.1%, 9th in red zone efficiency, turning those drives into touchdowns at nearly 60%. The Eagles go 11-6. That goes to show you how much talent they had and how much better they were at the start of the year compared to the end of the year, because you would have never guessed that their numbers were top 10 in all of those categories. For the Packers, they scored the 8th most points per game in the NFL, 10th most yards, 3rd on third down conversion rate. They did struggle a little bit when they got into the red area. Only 17th there. And Green Bay, they had to fight and claw to make it into the wild card round, where they dump trucked the Dallas Cowboys 9-8. They really had a heroic ending to the season. Defensively, hide your eyes if you love the Birds. It was so bad under the combination of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. And this is going to be a huge storyline going into 2024. Can Vic Fangio just make this unit better? I'm not asking him to make this unit elite. Can they just make strides? The Eagles were 30th in points per game allowed, 23rd in yards per game allowed, 30th in red zone or third down conversion rate, 29th in red zone, meaning teams scored a touchdown when they got inside the red area at a 65% clip, and the Eagles were 27th in takeaways. The Packers, they did hire a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, who used to be the head coach at Boston College. Bill O'Brien steps in for him. How about Bill O'Brien and Boston College beating Florida State last night? That was a little bit of a shocker. Suck it, Reed. The Packers last year defensively, 13th in points per game, 22nd in yards per game, 28th in third down rate, and 13th in red zone percentage, only 26th. A little bit better. One spot ahead Philadelphia as far as takeaways, and that's why Green Bay making some changes this offseason on the defensive side of the football. Last year in 2023, two teams on opposite trajectories going into the NFL playoffs. The Eagles starting 10-1. Everybody thought they were going to make a return to the Super Bowl. Finished 11-6. And that start during that 10-1 go was a little bit misleading, right? Because the Eagles got really lucky winning some of those games late while not outplaying their opponent. The Packers, on the other hand, started slow, as I mentioned earlier, but went 7-3 in their last 10 games, and you won't believe how good Jordan Love was down the stretch. Stay tuned for those numbers. With that, we're only ramping up here for our Week 1 preview. Philadelphia, Green Bay, two great teams in the NFC. Let me ask you, though, who you got? PHI for the Eagles, GB for the Packers. My prediction coming up at the end of the show. Coming up next here during our preview, things to watch out for, keys to the game, my prediction. Stay tuned for that. But first, our friends at Game Time have made today's Philadelphia Eagles now possible. If you're looking for last-minute tickets at the lowest price guarantee, download the Game Time app. You can get $20 off when you use the code CHATSPORTS. So download the app, create an account, use that code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your purchase. Now, if you want to go to Packers-Eagles in Brazil, there are still tickets available. More realistically, if you want to go to the home opener in prime time, Atlanta Falcons, Philadelphia Eagles in Week 2 at the Link, plenty of tickets available there. I love the Game Time app for so many reasons. Also because you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And there are so many great deals that Game Time has to offer, including Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy shows, concerts, theater events, and more. So it's not just for sporting events here, ladies and gentlemen. All-in pricing. I suggest that you toggle this feature because it will show you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy is awesome. You can also get the bird's eye view to look down at the stadium. Game Time also has a lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. One more time, download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We'll put all that information down below in the comment section and in the description of this preview video. Next up here on the show, things to look out for. Let's run through this list here. Just some things that kind of came to the forefront of my brain as I was thinking about this game in the lead up to Friday night. I think it's huge how Philadelphia has new coordinators who are very experienced and accomplished in this league. And you compare that with the situation last year. Brian Johnson, first-year offensive coordinator, had never called plays at the NFL level. Sean Desai, in over his skis, had 1 year of play-calling experience. You go from Brian Johnson and Sean Desai, unproven and failed last year, to Vic Fangio, who is one of the best defensive minds in the history of the NFL, and Kellen Moore, who's had top 5, top 10 offenses almost every year that he's been an offensive coordinator in this league. And that brings us to the second point, where the offensive system and the defensive scheme are going to be drastically different. The Eagles last year were 32nd in pre-snap motion. Kellen Moore in the preseason was running a lot of pre-snap motion. I think naturally that's going to put some of the Eagles playmakers in a position to make plays and succeed. And then also in turn, it's going to give Jalen Hurts a lot of easy looks as compared to last year where everything was so vanilla, everything was so predictable, Hurts was under duress. There were no safety valves, especially when teams would send blitzes toward Hurts because there were no checks, there were no hots, the offensive line protection was bad, the route combinations didn't make any sense going up against some of those blitz calls, and then you factor in all of the weapons that Jalen Hurts has around him. I think he's going to have a bounce-back year here in 2024, and a big reason for that is Kellen Moore. Defensively, situationally, game management, play calling, feel. I think Vic Fangio is going to be worlds better than the combination of Desai and Matt Patricia from last year. I'm also very excited to see what the impact of Saquon Barkley is. He's such a dynamic athlete, and I don't necessarily pin him as just a running back. He is an athlete. He can run in between the tackles. He can get out to the perimeter. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can line up in the slot. You can use him in between the 20s. You can use him inside the 20. For the first time in his career, he finally has complementary weapons around him outside of 1 year with OBJ and a good offensive line and a good quarterback as Hurts is worlds better than Daniel Jones. He's also a very good pass protector. So he's going to be able to provide pass protection coverage for Jalen Hurts. And the addition of Saquon Barkley makes the running game for Philadelphia more difficult to defend on some of those read options and RPOs. And Kellen Moore is going to have everything at his disposal this year. And I can't wait to see what he does with it. The defense at all three levels and the Quinion Mitchell impact. He actually technically pronounces it Quinion, so I guess we have to make that switch. So the defense at all three levels and Quinion, the impact that he could have as a rookie and in game one. So along the defensive line, question marks there with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. They have to get their stamina up. They can't wear down like they did at the end of the year. And for Jordan Davis, he just has to be better. At the edge rusher spot, what's the rotation going to be? Bryce Huff, big acquisition. Brandon Graham, older. Josh Sweat, more of a traditional 4-3 edge. You have Nolan Smith, who played deep into the final preseason game. So question marks all along the defensive line and at the edge rusher spots. At linebacker, we're not sure who's going to start. Devin White, Nakobe Dean. Devin White, Zach Bond. Nakobe Dean, Zach Bond. That's going to be interesting to look out for. And then this Eagles secondary has been completely remade by Howie Roseman at the cornerback spot and at safety. And Vic Fangio saying about Quinion Mitchell, he's going to play pretty much every single snap. Now, what the position is going to be, is he going to be inside, outside? We're not sure yet. Primarily throughout training camp, some of the preseason, he was working on the inside. Vic Fangio did say, ideally, we'd like him to play one position, but we're going to have to put our best DBs on the field. So I think you're going to see Quinion Mitchell on the inside a lot with Isaiah Rodgers and Darius Slay on the outside. And then lastly, the Eagles need to get their mojo back. They had it during that 2022 season when they were crushing teams. Some of those games were over at halftime. Last year, everybody seemed frustrated. Everybody seemed bothered. Everybody seemed pissed off. Nobody was really happy. The Super Bowl hangover was real, as it seemed as though there was a dark cloud hovering over this organization, even when the Eagles were off to a 10-1 start. Pressure's on Nick Sirianni. Players have talked about the great culture here for the Philadelphia Eagles during training camp, during the preseason. Get that mojo back, and you can do that with an impressive Week 1 performance. Next, we shift to my keys to the game. Philadelphia has to get off the field on third downs. They were 30th last year defensively in that category, and if they can't stop Jordan Love and the Packers on third down, they'll get gassed. It'll keep the Eagles' offense off the field, and they're going to have to keep up with the really high-octane Packers offense that I think is going to take another leap from last year to this year. Plus, it keeps your defense on the field for far too long, leading to easy opportunities for the Packers to score some points. And along those same lines, this Eagles secondary is really going to be tested. This is a hard Week 1 matchup to open up with because I think Green Bay is going to be improved defensively after they were terrible on that side of the ball last year. And then offensively, as I noted, I just think they have another evolution. They take another step, especially after signing Jordan Love to that huge contract extension. He's now the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. The Packers have some weapons, ladies and gentlemen. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, and Christian Watson. They can legit spread it out and go 4 wide at wide receiver. And you combine that with the fact that the Eagles have had to remake this secondary, difficult matchup for this new Eagles secondary. Also, this defensive line going to have to get home and put Jordan Love under siege. And then additionally, outside of the Packers going 4 wide at wide receiver, they go 2 deep at tight end. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are both really good tight ends, and they will test the Eagles' linebacking core. And then at running back, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, the Packers electing to pay Josh Jacobs. I don't think he's worlds better than Aaron Jones. I think they're very similar, but it's a notable free agent acquisition for Green Bay in the running game. Don't let Jordan Love find a rhythm. That is key to the game number 3. This is a quarterback who, if early in the game, he's able to find a rhythm, have some easy completions, get that confidence up. He's dropping the arm angle down to a couple of different angles. He's flicking the wrist, backpedaling and completing some dimes like Aaron Rodgers back in the day, because they can both do that. You can tell that Jordan Love came up under Aaron Rodgers. Then Jordan Love becomes really difficult to stop. If you get in his head and you start to pressure him and you give him multiple looks and he struggles right from the jump, that's a good sign for the Eagles early in this game. Jordan Love has become a more confident player as he's gotten more starts under his belt. His last 8 starts last year, he really started to find a groove, and you just saw a much more confident quarterback. He went 6-2. He completed over 70% of his passes, and he threw 18 touchdowns to 1 pick. So put him under siege, get pressure, contain him, muddy up the pocket right in his grill. Don't let Jordan Love find a rhythm right from the jump. The turnover battle, going to be interesting. In addition to the Eagles getting off to a faster start, Philadelphia was bad in both of those categories last year. The Eagles -10 in turnover differential in 2023. They are just simply too talented to commit self-inflicted wounds. And then you compare the 2022 season with the 2023 campaign. The first 12 games in 2022, the Eagles trailed in 2 games at halftime and led by an average of 7.8 points. First in the NFL. They were leading by more than a touchdown. Large percentage of the time. In 2023, in the first 12 games, the Eagles led in only 6 of those 12, and they were losing by an average of 1 point at half. What a switch from nearly an 8-point lead at halftime to a 1-point deficit. And it felt as though that was a reality because everything was kind of arduous for Philadelphia last year. And then key to the game number 5. It's time for Jalen Hurts to silence the doubters. In covering the NFL here at Chat Sports, in addition to covering the Eagles, a lot of people are out on Jalen Hurts. They think he stinks. They think the league has figured him out. We saw the Athletic article that we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago, in which defensive coordinators think that the answer is out on Jalen Hurts because he struggled against the blitz. I more so think that was bad game planning and execution and play calling and play design from Philadelphia because they had no answers for Jalen Hurts against the blitz. Look, I know what Hurts can bring to the table. We all know what Hurts can bring to the table. That 2022 season, runner-up in MVP voting. He looks fast in the lead up to week 1 this year, making him more of a threat, I think, to run the football. We know he always has that deep ball. He can throw with good touch, accuracy, and anticipation to his playmakers. I really think that a new offensive scheme is going to maximize Jalen Hurts. It's going to put him in a position to succeed, and he's going to silence the doubters. But if he struggles against Green Bay, and after in training camp, he hadn't thrown a pick in more than 300 attempts, and he's turning the ball over, he's missing some throws, that noise is going to get louder, and the question will become, is Jalen Hurts that guy? Predict this score for me. Eagles, Packers, week 1 in Brazil. Can't wait for it. I think this game goes neck and neck. I think we ride the seesaw. I think it's very close, and I've kind of gone back and forth. I really like this Packers team as a team that could be in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59 in February, but I just think Philadelphia is a little bit more talented. They're a little bit more experienced, and I think the Eagles get off to a positive start here in 2024, and they take down the Packers in a thriller, 30-28 in a game that features a lot, goes back and forth, but the Eagles win it in the end with a Jake Elliott field goal in the 4th quarter.